Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talk with the Titans, live from London, UK, all the way to the US of A and worldwide. I'm your host, Kalam, and this is Talk with the Titans. You know what? Tonight's show is actually a special show. We're actually going to do another, study session. We're actually doing another study session right now, and this one is actually to do with ancestral worship or ancestral veneration. So we're actually going to be discussing, this is a very great topic to talk about because it's always mentioned but never actually explained. So it's our hopes today to actually explain this topic. What is ancestral worship? What is ancestral veneration? And how do those of the from the African diaspora actually partake in actually venerating the ancestors as well? So we're going to be talking about all of that, all of those great subjects. I'm here with my main man, my brother Gabs, the UK polite KIP. What are you saying, King? What are you saying?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. What's happening, everybody? Just enjoying this nice little evening, and ready to get into this information, and share some good information with the people.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to be keeping a great eye on, the whole chat section. So I know a lot of people always have questions and always wants to be brought into the chat as well. So hopefully later on we're going to open it up and get people involved with this topic. So again, we're talking about ancestral worship or ancestral veneration, and I think it's very paramount because I know a lot of people have very negative stereotypes, or simply are in a state of ignorance and they don't know what it's all about. This question or this topic is always brought up in Speaker's Corner. Oh, you speak to your ancestors. Yeah, but you speak to God. We both have imaginary friends, so to speak. I've always hear that, conversation taking place. So definitely we'd love to actually, get involved with this topic. I want to know, Gabs, do you worship your ancestors at all?
Do I worship my ancestors? I would say, yeah, I do worship my ancestors,
Okay.
and
In
then I
what
don't
sense?
worship my ancestors.
You do, but you don't. You love my oxymoron ones there,
I do, but
I do, but I
yeah.
don't. That's like somebody saying, "Oh, do you worship your missus?" I do, but I don't. I love her a lot, but I don't actually. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're actually gonna go into this. I'm gonna delve into actually
Mm.
what we got here: African Religion and Philosophy by John Mbiti. This is a really, really good book. This is my star recommend. If any of you lot would love to actually get in, are interested with African thought, African theology, African religion, African culture, African customs, full stop. If you really wanted to get into the mind of an African, or if you are an African but have lost touch with your culture and your connection, this is a great book to get you up to speed with African philosophy and religion. Okay, so I'm actually going to read something. I literally just found this a little while ago, and it's talking about African understanding of ancestral worship, or its wrong understanding. Okay. Um, Okay, so it says here African religiosity, but it is wrong to interpret traditional religion simply in terms of worshipping the ancestors, as we shall see later in this book. The departed, whether parents, brothers, sisters, or children, form part of the family and must therefore be kept in touch with their surviving relatives. Libations and giving of foods to the departed are tokens of fellowship, hospitality, and respect. The drink and food so given are symbols of family continuity and contact. Worship is the wrong word to apply in this situation. Um, it says here is the wrong word to apply in this situation, and Africans themselves know very well that they are not worshipping the departed members of their family. It is blasphemous, therefore, to describe these acts of family relationships as worship. Furthermore, African religions do not end at the level of family rites of libations and food offerings. They are deeper and more comprehensive than that. To see them in only in terms of ancestor worship is to isolate a single element, which in some societies is of little significance, and to be blind to many other aspects of religion. So this is, one of the forerunners of African philosophy and religion. His claim is that, on investigating, a multitude of African traditional indigenous thought, that they don't actually worship their ancestors at all. It's even blasphemous for most cultures to even say that we worship our ancestors. Further on in the book, he actually explains that the more or the best way to actually describe what the Africans had was ancestral veneration, where they're showing deep respect, honor, and relationship with the departed souls. Okay, so it's showing honor, veneration, and respect to the departed souls rather than worshiping the ancestors. Worship was something that was only how can I put it, only instituted for the divinities or God itself. Okay, only for God itself or the divinities. Now, I want to know what's your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of people have been talking about this topic, and I want to know, has this changed your mind, or do you still think that the Africans worship their ancestors, and what are the forms of ancestral venerations? Gabs.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, it's funny because in a way, I could kind of see why people would assume that looking at most of these cultures and customs that the people there, the idols or the customs that they see the people practicing, they would automatically think that it's worship. But then the reason why it's like, remember, they're coming from a mindset of religion, whereas they've seen all these religious movies, or they've been to a church, or they've I don't know, they've been asked to come somewhere and join in worship. So because they've had this mindset on worship through religion and through the TV, now when they go and see other cultures that deal with certain practices, they automatically think, okay, these people are worshiping. Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas the actual people themselves would be like, hold on a minute, have you even asked us? Have you even discussed with us to know what we're doing before you say that this is worship? Do you see what I'm saying? Because that's like me, like we were talking before, being from a Nigerian background. If I'm gonna meet one of my ancestors, or one of my aunties or uncles comes round to the house, the first thing that I would do is a thing called Dide or Joko, which means to lay down flat, or you go down and you touch the floor. Now, to someone else, they might think, hold on a minute, bro, you're bowing down. Why are you bowing down? Do you know what I mean? They might think that's worship. I'm like, that's not worship. This is me honoring respect to my aunties and uncles. This is what we do in our culture. You see what I'm saying? And I think um, that's what's happened. That's been portrayed throughout all the ancient cultures as well. I think people have put this perspective that, yeah, these people were worshiping these idols. They were worshiping this and that. But you know what I mean? We don't know their thought process. You see what I'm saying? This could have just been a whole thing based on honor and respect and love. You see what I'm saying? So
100.
um
100. Oh, real quickly. For everybody who's tuning in right now, please, please, please hit the share button. Let everybody else know that we're actually live here on Talk with the Titans, and we're talking about ancestral worship. We're talking about ancestral veneration, which is the right terminology to be applied to this particular subject here. The misconception is ancestral worship, but the right terminology is actually ancestral veneration. We're going to get more into that. What exactly is ancestral veneration? What are the acts of ancestral venerations? What are the thoughts in terms of the ancestors? Like, are they alive, are they dead? What does it really mean? I'm going to try to be inclusive yet again, and put it in from a Christian perspective, put it in from an Islamic perspective, and what other perspectives as well we have out there. So if you are from any of the other communities, let me know in the comment section what community you're from, even if you're from the Chinese communities that have a similar ancestral veneration process. Let me know in the comment section where you're from. And we're going to be talking into this because I know there's a lot of misconceptions. Please give us a big thumbs up if you're liking information. If you like Titans TV and you support us, please give us a big thumbs up indeed. Because I'm seeing here in the comment sections, they're talking about jinns and all these other things here, which has no bearing on traditional African concepts itself. These are foreign ideologies being embedded or placed upon African thought. Let's forget what you think you know, because what you think you know, you may not know. Okay, so let's leave that to a side for one hot second and let's get it from the African perspective itself. How do they view things? Okay, from their perspective, then we can actually kind of compare and contrast what the other religious minds have in terms of their concepts about, you know, spirits or jinns or ancestors or whatever the case is. So we're going to go into this now. Um, Okay, so let me just check something here. I've got something here. It says, let's see. Um, I want to jump into this right here. This recognition by name is extremely important. Okay, the appearance of the departed and he's being recognized by name may continue for up to 5 or 6 generations, so long as someone is alive who once knew the departed personally and by name. When, however, the last person who knew the departed also dies, then the former passes out of the horizon and the Sasa period. In the effect, he now becomes completely dead as far as family ties are concerned. I'm jumping again. So long as the living dead is thus remembered, he is in a state of personal immortality. This personal immortality is externalized in the physical continuation of the individual through procreation, so that the children bear the traits of the parents or progenitors. The acts of pouring out libations of beer, milk, and water, or giving portions of food to the living dead are symbols of communion, fellowship, and remembrance. Okay, so these acts of worship are actually symbolic acts of worship for fellowship, communion, and remembrance. I wanted to just read out that bit there because I've actually had it highlighted actually inside of the book, and I know these are the topics that we need to jump into. Real quickly, I see somebody here that wants to jump in onto the panel. Do you know what I'm going to do? My brother, if you are on Facebook, because I don't want many people to be jumping in. I only want to select few people jumping in right now. So if you're on Facebook, go to Kalam, Kalam space SP space EL. Okay. And just inbox me or befriend me and inbox me, and I will get the link to you personally. Okay. Because I don't want everybody jumping in. I just want to select few on the panel to actually discuss this topic. All right. So let's get back into this now. Let's get back into this. Um, so, Gabs, um, I want to know. I want to know.
Yep.
You know, because you know the Muslims and the Christians, you know, they say, "Oh, you know, you speak to your ancestors." You know, I want to know: is that such a bad thing to be communicating with your ancestors? And is it even possible to communicate with your ancestors?
Um, Me personally, um, I wouldn't see it as a bad thing, and I don't know why someone would want to see it as a bad thing. Because that's just like saying you have people in the world that are very close to certain members of their family who help them give them important messages in their life. You know what I mean? That help them to strive or get through certain situations. So and they might have passed, and then you might think when you're in a tough situation, you might want to call on that family or that relative to help you and guide you through that situation. You see what I'm saying? You and all you need is because they're not around. That saying their name draws a certain energy to you to help you get through that situation. So I don't know why someone would see that as bad. The only way, the same way religion do it, in Christianity, people will call on the name of Jesus. You see what I'm saying? Who they would say is an ancestor. Do you know what I mean? He could be seen or portrayed as an ancestor who's passed. He was here living, and now he's passed. And then you have millions of people around the world calling on the name of Jesus to help them get through their day and get through their bad situations. But what about those people that don't know Jesus and that haven't been they haven't been what's the word? They haven't been brought up in the Christian faith. Do you know what I mean? Who do they call on for strength and guidance? Who do they call on to help them get through their hard situations? Even if you're talking about our ancient ancestors prior to religion that was traveling the harsh lands, you know what I mean, trying to get from place to place. Who did they call on to give them strength to get through the harsh jungles? You know what I mean, and the hard terrain. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see why someone would look upon someone and say, "Oh, you speak to your ancestors." Oh man, that's a joke. why did you speak to them? That's wrong. Not wrong.
Mm. You know, at the same time, I find it much more logical. I find, well, let's put it like this: in your times of need, okay, as a child, or even when you grow up and as an adult, you know, in times of need, who do you call on? It's usually your mother or your father. It's usually your parents, your family members that you call on for any help or guidance or anything that you may possibly need, any sustenance that you may need. You don't technically call on anybody else. And even if you call, let's say, for example, on God, it's not a force that can actually physically, literally give you something in the here and the now, is it? So then, you know, it seems almost logical, you know, to follow on thought that even though once your you know, your mother or father passes, you know, you can still call on to them, or you still have that connection to actually call these people for any type of guidance and help and sustenance or anything that you need. I don't see the problem to it. But I think the problem really and truly actually lies in the fact that they're actually dead. I think people have feel as though it is taboo now to actually speak to a dead person. You know, to speak to a dead person is taboo. I think that's the real problem from a religious mind frame. Um, Things get a bit blurry. But I want to know from an African philosophy, once a person physical body now cease to
Mm.
be operational in this realm, um, is that person dead or are they still living? From an African thought, you know, let me know, Gabs. Are they still alive or are they dead?
From an African thought, they will be seen as not dead. Those ancestors are still alive, and they can still their energy is still present. You see what I'm saying? They didn't see the ancestor as once their physical body had died, that was it. That person's soul and spirit is deceased. And then even so, religious people would kind of agree with that because um, they say obviously once they die, you know, their spirit's eternal. It's either gonna go eternity to heaven or eternity in hell. But remember, from a Christian point of view, I don't think those souls even get to go to heaven or hell yet until Jesus has come back to bring judgment, and then I think the souls get sent to wherever they're supposed to go for the final judgment. So it's like they're still in this place called purgatory, where I think is in the middle. So maybe you could probably still be able to contact these souls and these spirits or your ancestors during that period of time. But going back to the question, yeah, from an African point of view, those ancestors who have deceased are not dead. The physical body might have gone, but the spirit and the energy, the essence, is still very much alive.
Still maintained. I don't know whether it's on my end where it's a bit fuzzy or whether it's on your end, but it's going a bit fuzzy. Let's get Christian or even the Muslim perspective. Are your ancestors, are your predecessors, are they alive in a spiritual realm or are they simply dead that you have no means of contact? Fair enough. If your ancestors or your people in a spiritual sense is completely dead, but you have that reservation that you shouldn't be speaking to them because obviously they can't answer you back. But what if they're actually alive? So now, you know, I'm going to actually turn into the Bible now. We're going to go to Matthew 22, verse 32. And it speaks, this is Jesus speaking. And it says here about God, I am the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the from you know, at least from a Judaic or even a New Testament philosophy, that the ancestors, you know, definitely the patriarchs are considered to be dead, but the for God is not the God of the dead, but only. So, you know, here is certain individuals, certain figures, certain patriarchs, Isaac, Jacob, and Abraham, and so forth. But God is saying, no, I'm not the God of the dead. I'm only the God of the living. So therefore, Abraham and all these individuals are actually alive. Are actually alive. We places within inside of the Bible, New Testament, where we have figures such as Moses and Elijah coming down onto them and speaking with Jesus. You know, this is the transfigurement period, or when Jesus transfigured, showing that these individuals were never seen to be dead. They may have physically this world, but spiritually they are alive. Then we can even go into from an Islamic perspective as well. We have Muhammad's supposed ascension into the heavens. He's Miraj, and he several different heavens. Heaven number one, heaven number two, heaven number three, etc., all the way up to heaven number seven. And he saw John the Baptist, Jesus. He saw Abraham. He saw Moses. He saw all these different patriarchs, and they were alive to him. Conversations with the patriarchs, okay, and even with God supposedly, showing you that from an Islamic perspective, the ancestors are still alive, okay, to the point that actually, Moses to change Muhammad's mind. Muhammad had a conversation with Moses, and Moses was telling Muhammad to go back up to heaven and speak to God and ask him to lower the prayers all the way down to 50, and then all the way down to 5. So therefore Moses was interceding somewhat, and even changing God's mind and even Muhammad's mind, you lot might say. So we can see from both perspectives, those patriarchs, or those figures within side of Christianity and Islam, both spoke to supposed dead individuals or supposed ancestors, but we have no problem with it. You have no problem, and you don't call these patriarchs ancestor worshippers, or have derogatory terms for them. You simply accept them as part of your religious milieu. You simply accept them as part of your traditions. But for an African person, you have a very different and warped sense of justice and view. You know what? I'm actually going to just cut there real quickly. And I want to bring in another perspective. So we have a brother that's joined us YouTube, come through Facebook. Brother, please introduce yourself.
Yo, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, my name's Yomi still. I big up you, bro. I see your stuff on YouTube like all the time. Proper entertaining stuff. Him as well. Him. What's this guy's name?
Gabs.
Him, Sarah. I think it's another person. I caught it's proper funny stuff to watch. I learn a lot while I watch it too, but it's funny.
Yeah. Did you have anything to say on this topic?
Oh yeah. I'm from Nigeria as well, so I've been out there a couple times too. I feel like ancestral veneration, you called it. It's not as taboo like back there, because I've had to go village and the stuff they do. I feel like if you used to do it more so here, people would look at you like, whoa, speaking to dead people, it's you'd get looked at like, are you crazy? But I feel like it's less taboo back there.
Indeed, very much so less taboo. It's just simply accepted. It's part of the norm, regardless if you are a Muslim, a Christian, or even practice your traditional religion. The ancestors are always honored. There's always pouring of libations. There's always giving of cola nuts, giving of various different items and objects, and definitely honoring the ancestors. The ancestors are looked upon in great esteem, not because the problem is the spiritual realm is less contacted over here, whereas when you go back home into your ancestral land or into the land of Africa, full stop, it is very ripe, it is very relevant, it's very vibrant. Individuals are being in contact with the ancestors, whether they want to be in contact with the ancestors or not. They're actually that force, that spiritual energy is there, okay, without a shadow of a doubt. Those ancestors are just jumping into people's visions or dreams and giving them messages that are relevant for the here and the now. And I think other cultures seem to be, how can I say, cut off from that connection. Either they are cut off from that connection, or they cut themselves off from that connection itself.
Yeah.
But you gotta but can you hear me?
Yeah.
You gotta think though, what it looks like to them. You could just think you're talking to your ancestors, but if you're like unfamiliar in those like territories, you like they just might think you're speaking to demons or something like. But you can't like physically see what you're speaking to in it if you're to do that. So it would. I understand how it like may look like to others who aren't necessarily used to it. Like it can be a bit like you ain't really sure what you're playing with. And when you see mad films like, have you guys seen Ouija and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're stepping into like like you're unsure about what you're doing. So it's like I kind of understand.
That's right.
Especially in like Western cultures, like how they would look at that type of stuff. It's not really. I don't want to say it's not normal, but it's not like a conventional like way of living, if that makes sense. Like
That's right. That's right. I think
mm,
the problem is most people aren't actually spiritually trained or spiritually in
yeah,
tune. They're given religions or certain things that actually take away from their spirituality. They're given dogmas to
Yeah.
follow, and those dogmas tend to take away from the spirituality. I give it to Christianity. Christianity has a lot of spirituality within inside of it, where they are there and they're feeling that spirit indeed. But other religions, they may be disconnected from that spiritual aspect. And let me jump into something actually. What am I jumping into right now? We've got so much to get into. Before I jump into that, let me read the comments real quickly. We are the ancestors through lineage. We could harness our ancestral powers. Then us as a people today wouldn't be a conquered people. Okay, is everything corrupted? Okay, where does it say? Okay, so let me just see, because let me read we've got some Muslims in here, and they always have a lot to say. So they think that it's the jinn. And then
see,
somebody
you
else
see,
asks, "What is jinn?" That's what jinns do. They deceive you. Um, Allah says in the Quran, Al Karim, not you kill the persons. Okay, so a lot of people here are talking about jinns, and this is what the jinns do. They deceive you. So it's funny how individuals would rather believe or rather accept a supernatural force that has been created somehow that we have no interaction, or the majority of us have no interaction with.
rather than people we
But
know actually existed.
we don't know if they really do exist. But your ancestors or your mother and
We
father,
know
we do
existed.
know who does exist, and we do know that their spirit definitely lives on. You have an issue with that. You have an issue with them contacting you. That's quite funny. It's quite like hilarious to actually think about. Um, but I want to jump into a few things now. I actually want to jump into some depth and some detail with some African thought and philosophy. So we've already established the fact that the Africans don't actually worship their ancestors; rather, they venerate their ancestors. They give honor to their ancestors, they respect them, and they want to be in communication with them as they were alive here on the earth. So they are alive in another spiritual realm. But I want to get into that. I want to know, we've already established as well through African philosophy and thought, the ancestors live on. The ancestors do live on. But I want to know, how do we get in contact with the ancestors? Is the soul eternal? Is it immortal? Is it how can I put it? Does it forever live on? And are we in the right frame of mind to actually be contacting the ancestors? Is this something that everybody should be doing in itself? So I want to get into all of that. I also want to jump into some Egyptian or Kemetic philosophy. I want to jump more into the African thought pattern as well. And we're going to be inclusive again and try to draw in other religions and compare them as well. So my brother, I don't know if you wanted to jump on anything real quickly.
Oh, I wanted to ask you guys a couple questions.
Mhm.
Um, do you have a belief religion?
Okay. Personally, I have a belief
Hmm.
called um, the belief is called I do not want to believe. That's what my belief is called.
Please
I
explain.
do not want to believe.
Yeah.
I personally believe that belief is the epitome of ignorance. Belief is something that you don't
Mm,
actually know, and
mm,
my belief is to discard any of my beliefs and investigate them and come to a point of knowledge and knowing. Okay, that's it. Simply as that. Come to a point of knowing, rather than
But do you
simply
feel like
being.
you ever reach a point of knowing that?
I think you do. I think you definitely, reach a point of knowing, and one can basically reach a point of knowing that they do not know anything. That's one of the
Yeah.
most fundamental thoughts in philosophy. Full stop. Is to know that you know nothing. Be humble. Approach a subject or a topic in a very humble manner, and kind of have the thought pattern that everybody else around you knows more than you possibly know. And then if you come with that humble state of mind, you'll actually investigate in a nice humble fashion where you can learn from other people. And then when you come to then you may even come to the conclusion that those people don't know what they're talking about. And then you need to go on another journey and search for that truth yourself.
Is
But
that
you can
why you stay behind the camera most of the time?
definitely, I'm in my learning mode. I'm in my learning mode. I learn, who's chatting the most and who has some sense that I can actually learn from itself. The camera perspective is great because it's the objective perspective where you're not invested emotionally. When it comes to religion, you're invested emotionally into something. When you become just a simple observer, you can use your critical mind to observe factual statements and false statements, and then you can take upon which statements you want to actually benefit your life, benefit your life full stop.
Interesting. What about you, Gabriel?
With me, I would say my belief system is my belief system is to know and to learn really.
Mm.
I
But you
don't, you
wouldn't
know what
you
I mean?
wouldn't like label yourselves under any like religion, would you?
No, I wouldn't label myself under any religion.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have a issue, I don't have a problem with religion.
Mm.
But for me personally,
Mm.
um, my belief will be to know and to learn. Because
Yeah.
I think like my brother was saying, knowing is from knowing you gain knowledge and you gain understanding. From learning, you gain knowledge, you gain understanding, and you gain growth.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? To be able to understand different people. I just don't want to believe because beliefs can lead beliefs can lead to fights.
Yeah.
Beliefs
Mm.
can lead to all kinds of madness. You see what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like it's evident like throughout history what
Mm.
beliefs has done. So I think knowing bears more weight because we can all agree that we all know that 1 + 1 is 2.
Yeah.
No one won't have to fight and kill for that. No one don't have to. Do you know what I mean? No one don't have to um, force another guy into knowing that and saying, "Listen, no, 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 no." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is something common that we all know.
Mm.
So I think in that case, that's how I say I want to know
Mm.
and I want to learn and grow myself
Mm.
while I'm here on this on this plane for this
Mm.
short amount of time.
What's your background?
Oh, as in what family culture?
Nationality?
Yeah. So I'm half Nigerian, half Jamaican.
Was that like a problem? Like, was you like growing up in like a Christian household or whatever?
Yeah, you already know this. So
Yeah.
imagine, yeah, the house was Christian to the ceiling. You
Mm.
see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's all I grew up. That's all I knew.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
So
So
was it weird,
so
like when you kind of just wanted to just like you want to know in it, so you're not gonna just fully adopt
yeah,
that religion?
yeah. Well, when I did change, when I did leave the faiths and the beliefs, and I did change, it did bring a lot of questions and a lot of debates
Mm.
in the household. But I think I thought it was good. It helps because it also allows you to communicate with your family members, and you know what I mean. They get to see your thought process and how you think,
Mm.
and that's the thing that a lot of families are lacking nowadays. They don't really, especially the youth, they don't really communicate with their families.
Mm.
But like topics like that, you can actually get down and chat and find out how each other's thinking.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, it was I didn't see it as a negative thing, even though we did have a few arguments. I saw it as more as a learning and growth and understanding.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right, all
Cool.
right.
Oh wait,
Again,
one
everybody,
more as
please
well.
go
Sorry.
ahead. Before you do that, everybody who is watching, please hit the like button. Let us know that you're loving the information that we're giving out. As you can see, you can actually join the panel. and actually have conversations with us, we can make this an interactive experience, not just merely you actually just there and just gaining information. I want you to participate. I want you to actually ask questions. So if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. Go ahead, my brother.
What made you like want to stop believing and just like get to a knowing? Like, did you think like there's got to be more to just books and it being this straight way? Like, if that makes sense.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. To be honest with you, I'm pretty much blessed. I was pretty much blessed. In my household, knowledge and reading and just gaining information was kind of paramount. That was like key. Like that's what you do. That's what you do. Most people would actually be sneaking into their, father's room to get some porno magazines or something like that. That's what they're sneaking. Like me, I was sneaking into the library. I was sneaking into my mom's library room and just drawing out little books here, sociology, okay, psychology, okay, let me read this, okay, let me see how can I utilize this, let me do this and that, see how that works. So I was kind of blessed growing up in a family where reading, knowledge, learning was actually just key. Again, very diverse family where I'm getting education wise from Christians, Muslims, Rastas, traditional Africans, and so forth. So it was constantly embedded into me to keep on looking, keep on searching, keep on knowing more and more and more and more and more. So for me, it was just inherent for me. I was just there, just reading. That was just like my pastime. The Bible, okay, I read that. I read it twice over in less than 6-month period. Quran, read that twice over in less than 3-4 months. Like all of these top subjects is just like, okay, I've learned it. Okay, let's move on to something a bit more deeper now. So, I'm blessed, to be honest with you. My parents were open for me to learn more rather than to be like, thou shalt not question thy faith.
I hear that.
Go on, Gabs, anything?
Yeah, for me, kind of the same. My parents, even though my parents were like proper hardcore Christians and stuff like that, well, especially my mum, not really much now, my dad. They didn't really pressure me into like, oh, listen, you must go to church every Sunday, you must do your prayer, you must read this. They weren't really strict like that. So that kind of allowed me to gain information and go out and learn and seek truth. You see what I'm saying? But it's funny enough, my whole turning point, I'm gonna let you in a little something about me. Yeah, I took a little bit of time. I went behind the four walls, and it was that period that gave me the time to be able to read. Because remember, when you're incarcerated or you're behind four walls, there's nothing really much you can do. You see what I'm saying? So the only thing I could really do was pick up books and try and learn it. That was my time there that was my turning point where I started to read a lot, try to understand certain things, and decided that I want to know myself. You know what I mean? I want to learn and grow. So, yeah.
Indeed. All right. Let me jump back into this now. I see your questions. I've seen your comments down there. I'm definitely going to read them out in a short while. I want to get into the ancient Egyptian vantage point. How did they view society? How did they view life after death and things of that nature? So I'm going to be reading from, let's see this here. We got James P. Allen's Middle Egyptian. So that is there. And page 33, actually, I'm reading from. So it's got here. The ancient Egyptians divided their world into 3 classes of sentient beings. Number 1, the gods, Neteru, the Achs, or the Achu, and the living, the Anchu. The gods were the original forces and elements of nature whose wills and actions governed all life. The Achs were the what up, Ak? You saying Ak? I'm good, Ak. Okay. Anyways, theAks were the spirits of those who had died and made the successful transition to life after death. They did not live in some heavenly paradise, but in this world, among the living. After spending the night asleep in their tombs, the ox would wake each morning at sunrise and come forth from the necropolis to enjoy an ideal life, free from the cares of the physical existence. Because they were spirits, they existed on the same level as the gods and shared many of the gods' powers. Um, so that's how, from an ancient Egyptian perspective, they divided their worlds. It's the same thing with inside of Yoruba. Understanding of their world. Same with the Igbo as well. Let me remember the different terminologies they actually do have. You have the Orisha, which is on one level. You have Orisa. I believe it's the Orisa or something else on the second level, and then you got the normal human beings after that. And then obviously with the Igbo as well, you have Chuku on top. Then you have the ancestors again in a separate realm, and then you have us here on Allah or on the earth itself. Go ahead, my brother. Did you have a question? Nope, you didn't have a question.
No.
Okay, cool. So this is how the ancestors or the ancient Egyptians, plus many African cultures, divided up the world, where there's the realm of where God resides or gods reside, and the realm where the spirits or the spiritual ancestors actually reside, and the world where human beings resided. And they were just in constant communication with all three aspects. We're in constant communication with our mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters whilst we're here on earth. And then the ancestors as well. We have an opportunity to actually visit them and have conversations with them, and the same with God or gods as well. This is nothing, new to us. To other cultures, they weren't able. This science wasn't given to them. They weren't mature enough, I would assume, to have certain sciences actually allotted to them. But thankfully, within our African culture, this was actually a norm for us. So I actually want to jump now into another part of the ancient Egyptian ideas concerning the dead and the life after death as well. So it says here on page number 96, Egyptian tombs had two parts. The body was interred along with its grave goods in a burial chamber below ground. This room was sealed after the funeral and was supposed to be inaccessible. From then on, above ground was a chapel, or in the case of royal tombs, an entire temple. Here, offerings could be made and prayers said for the deceased. The chapel was normally decorated with images of the deceased and scenes of people bringing offerings, and could consist of many rooms. Its focal point was a niche recess in the west wall, known as a false door, with an offering slab placed in front of it. Through this niche, the spirits of the dead person could emerge from the burial chamber to partake of the nourishment, the ka'u, in the offerings. Let me continue. The ceremonies performed at the funeral were meant not only to restore the dead person's physical abilities, but more importantly, to release the ba from its attachment to the body so that it could come and go at will. The ba was supposed to rejoin its life force, the ka, so that the dead person could continue to live. The deceased are often called those who have gone to their cars. Once this reunion had taken place, the deceased became an akh, literally an effective one, able to live on a new non-physical form. Before this could happen, however, the deceased had to pass a final judgment. What I really actually, in reading now, what I really wanted to get to was that the fact that, which is not here, I need to actually find it somewhere, from the ancient Egyptian conceptualization, is there were many different elements that actually made up a human being. Some of these things were temporal, and some of these things were intemporal, for lack of a better word for right now. What I mean by that is some of these things will vanish in this world or in the physical realm, and some things they could take on into the spiritual realm. So obviously, evidently, your physical body is something that you actually can't take on, but your spiritual body is something that you could take on. And there was certain rites or rituals or things that you have to go through before you are even able to be considered an ancestor or an akh that you can actually call and reach out to. A lot of people saying, so we can speak to our ancestors. In all reality, it's only a few ancestors, or those ancestors that transcended, that were applied as being good or judged ma'akhiru or true voice or vindicated, in the next life were you able to actually be in contact with, and they would be in contact with you and be in benign forces. Okay, there are certain ancestors that may have done terrible things, and they weren't actually allowed into the spiritual family, the ancestral family. When that time came from an African thought pattern, they were actually sent out elsewhere, and they became those spirits which were, the so-called wicked spirits and so forth. So, even from an African perspective, not all ancestors could make it to the next level. And there's certain things that you have to do to be able to reach the next level itself. My brother, is there anything that you want to chime in right there?
Nope, nope, nope.
Mm. It's interesting stuff, isn't it?
Y'all gonna just make me talk, yeah? All right. All right, I'm gonna talk. So I want to see what are I'm just looking in now to see what you lot are saying over in the comment section. Let me read. Let's see. Please send in some comments right now because I'm gonna be reading your comments right now. Right now. There's absolutely no difference between a Jew, Christian, or a Muslim. Period. Stop the madness. So I guess there's some madness going on in the comment section. Forget all of you lot fighting with each other. Kalam, facts, I hear you. So fighting each other, man. Stop fighting each other. Let's go in. Let's talk about this topic here. I've seen it mixed by guys that read that Quran hard. Callum read this Christian's comment. Look how he's lying. Okay, how did Egypt fall with the height of knowledge to be able to create pyramids but still fall? Big up, fam. I'm trying to join the panel. Okay, if you want to join the panel, simply go onto Facebook. My brother here can testify. Yomi can testify. He literally joined me on Facebook. So that's Kalam, Kalam, space SP space EL, and you'd be able to join me. Just inbox me, let me know that you'd like to be on the panel, and I will definitely push you in or get you involved. Now, you know what? One of the reasons I actually done this show itself, was actually in honor of a beautiful sister who actually sent me a message the other night. Her name she goes by the name Jules on Facebook, and she says, "Greetings, Callum. I have just finished watching your Titans show. Is Jesus Son of God? And all I can say is, oh my God, that show was dope. I usually can only stand to watch Titans at the most 10 to 15 minutes, mainly due to the fact that everyone think their way is the only way, and it all becomes noisy and frustrating. But this show here, I watch to the end. That was a grown, sexy show. It was non-biased, educational, professional, inspirational, all that and some. Since I'm not a Facebook or YouTube groupie, I had to message you and give you your props. Well done, love. That was proper nice show. You and Gabs pretty much did it all alone. So now I wonder, do you really need an army on the panel? Just saying. Now here is the key point I wanted to actually get onto. Oh, and also the Muslim brother towards the end raised a good point. Should we be worshiping, honoring our ancestors? Should people set up altars in their homes and channel spirits of their unknown ancestors from many generations ago without knowing the history? I think you should definitely touch on that because I don't believe channeling is for everyone. I speak from experience. Peace and light. So I actually want to get into this now. I want to get into this. Be honoring our ancestors. She raises that good point. She also raises the point that channeling also spirits isn't for everyone. So I want to know your perspective. I want everybody to chime in on that, shipping or honoring the ancestors, and should we be channeling spirits as well? Is that something that everybody can do or should do?
I'm gonna answer that question. Me personally, I think yes, us honoring our ancestors, I think that would be a good thing. You know why? Because it takes time, it takes being calm, and it takes also adding in meditation. Some religious people would say they already do that. They pray, they go into their worship mode, and they pray or they do fellowship that takes them into that state of connecting with God or Jesus. You know, some of the people from Islam or from Islam would say that they do their prayers 5 times a day, which helps them to get their messages across to Allah. So it's kind of the same things, but really and truly, you're just doing it more on a day-to-day basis, and you're more directing it to the energy of your ancestors and your family. Me personally, I think that would help, especially more with the household, because then it could help the youth, especially the younger generation, to still know about honor and respect. You see what I'm saying? A lot of the youth nowadays don't really have honor and respect for their elders. You see what I'm saying? So I think if we were carrying on these practices, these ancient customs, you would see a change in the youth. You see what I'm saying? In their energy, in the way they go about speaking to adults. But on the flip side, I would say with the channeling, like the sister said, it isn't for everybody. You see what I'm saying? Because you got some cold-hearted people out here. Do you know what I mean? That they're not trying to, you know what I mean? They're not trying to get on that frequency, or it's even hard for them. They might not be doing it on purpose, but it might be hard for them to get on that type of frequency. You know what I mean? Just to spend a bit of time to honor on their family. To them, it might be seen as something abnormal. You see what I'm saying? So it is for some, but I think, me personally, I think if people did participate in that, it would be a good thing.
I feel like, can you hear me? Oh,
Yep.
I feel like the only issue people would have with it is the term worship. So as you said, veneration is a better term to use. But when people hear the word worship, they're thinking it's a church thing, a mosque thing. You're bowing down, you're singing songs of praise, and I think that's where the issue would be. I don't think it would be a problem, especially because, like, religion aside, like, we actually know these people like did exist. So like, I don't know why people would have such a like shun like attitude towards it, because if like religions, you don't really know when it's like actually a belief, but we know these people existed. So like, I wouldn't have any problem with it, and I feel like it, like Gab said, it should be actually a thing that more people do. But I don't know how you would do it as well would be a thing, because how would you even start like the whole process? Like, how would you go about it?
Definitely, we're gonna touch on that. We're actually gonna touch on that. And you know what's so key as well? The funny thing is, a lot of us actually ascribe to ancestral veneration already, regardless if we're religious or non-religious. A lot of us do it already, but we simply don't even know. What do I mean by this? Most people, for example, they visit the graves of somebody who's passed away. They lay flowers on the graves of people who's passed away. They are, even going where somebody has died, the spot where somebody has died, they lay flowers there. Some people stand there and just literally recall and remember that person who's passed away, and lament, and actually, start talking just normally, like that person was there listening to the conversation itself. There's all these different acts that people normally do on a day-to-day basis. You even see now, in rap videos, or just in, gang culture, people be pouring bottles of Hennessy down and saying this is for such and such. RIP, RIP man like shocks, RIP man like guns, real boy. RIP all the man them. So you can see all of these things are taking place. People don't even know what they're doing, but it is forms of ancestral venerations. We even have big rituals taking place that people are actually venerating an ancestor, and they don't even know it. They don't even know that it's a form of ancestral veneration itself. For example, you have the Muslims. You have the Muslims. They literally. I'm going to use the term because they use it. They literally worship an ancestor every single year without fail. They worship, or they venerate, or give honor to the ancestor, to the African ancestor, to the African woman, the black woman herself, Hagar, their mother. You know, they literally take a pilgrimage. They go to Mecca. They literally run up and down two mountains, so up and down these two mountains called Al Safa and Marwa, where supposedly Hagar, during the biblical times, ran up and down looking for water, and then an angel magically appeared, clicked his heel, and then a well came up called Zamzam. So they literally go on their Hajj and they want to drink from that water to recall that whole story and everything that's going on there. They literally circle around the Kaaba itself, where supposedly Hagar and Ishmael was buried. In pre-Islamic times, they used to actually sleep within inside of an area called the Hijr, within inside of the Kaaba itself. Well, the Kaaba was circular back in the day. It's been made into a cube, but there's a little semicircle that's there, supposedly where Hagar and Ishmael was buried, and they go there, they sleep there. It's called incubation, where you sleep next to the ancestor. You see this in most Catholic churches now. Even if you go and visit Rome, or even other churches, you will see that there is actually an ancestor or a person, a saint that's buried there with the relics of their bones. And people believe as long as they're close enough to it, that spirit or that ancestor can actually speak to you. So, you know, you can find in pre-Islamic literature where they were actually doing these things. So this should be no surprise. Like, you know, people actually do it on a day-to-day basis or on a yearly, monthly basis. They remember, they recall the ancestors, they give offerings, they give libations and so forth to ancestors. But they have such a problem when, you know, an African person now says that they venerate their ancestor. They feel as though it's something spooky, it's something wrong. But when, you know, their culture practices it but doesn't call it that, it's okay, it's fine. This is very funny. But anyways, I digress. Let me actually go and see. Somebody says here, I think they want to correct me. The Catholics do the exact same thing as Lourdes in Paris, Kalam, okay, as the Louvre Lourdes. I don't know. Anyway, wow, Muslims worship ancestor. Is that what you came up with now, Kalam? No, as I said to you, if you want to call it worship, if you want to call it worship instead of veneration, then yeah, you know, definitely Muslims definitely do worship you know, certain ancestors. You know, in certain prayers, you be calling on the name of Muhammad, you be calling on the name of Abraham. You know, these are people that are passed on, but you're still calling on their names. These are acts of worship, or acts of veneration. What's the real term is veneration, but you lot, you know, religious folks like to call it, just throwing it out there as such. I'm not literally saying that you lot worship your ancestors. No, I'm not saying that, because the proper term is veneration. True talk, Chief and Callum. Veneration just means great respect. Indeed. So as you can see, our ancestors showed great respect, or our, you know, ancestors showed great respect to those people who had passed on. It's nothing spooky. We realize that the spiritual aspect of that person lives on. It lives on. It doesn't simply die or fade out. It simply lives on, and we're able to be in contact with these ancestors who we literally knew. Okay, we can have visions, we can have dreams, we can see apparitions of them, and they can speak to us. They can give us information that we need. Okay, and we can go on our day-to-day life and use that information that they gave us. It's nothing spooky, it's just something that happens, it's just something that occurs. Okay. Let's see, Sufi Muslims venerate saints all the time. My brothers, if you don't want to jump in quickly, I want to actually pull up some more information.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
I was gonna chime in and say something quick actually and throw something in there. I was gonna say, so since we're now seeing that it wasn't really worship and that we're dealing with veneration, now we could probably now bring that to the whole understanding of this whole idol worshiping, which they thought the Africans were taking part in the ancient times. Could it just simply have been veneration to nature? Because a lot of people say, look, those people were worshiping idols over there. They were idol worshippers. That's why in the Quran or the Bible it says don't worship the idols. But it just been veneration to the idols. So whereas they might see the sun, yeah, they're giving honor and respect and showing love to the sun because they understood that without the sun, we wouldn't have no life. Without water, we wouldn't be able to drink and quench our thirst. Without the grains and the grass and the animals, basically our existence would be pointless. So all they did was just um, make images and to honor these things in nature and pull it in forms where people can collect them so that the younger generation can remember these practices. But now over time, since we've come with different people from different cultures, they have now twisted it and turned it into worship. And now they put in their text that, listen, look, God said you shouldn't worship these idols. Don't worship them. Look, look, look. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
But the real meaning and the real depth meaning was actually honoring and respect, which, like we said, a lot of people have lost this respect and honor. You know what I mean? Not a lot of youth and not a lot of people show respect to nature. You can see it throughout how the world's going now with these fake foods, fluoride in the water, got these chemtrails, loads of stuff, oil in the water. Do you know what I mean? We're not showing no honor and respect to these things. And these are the same things that religious people were saying that we were idol worshippers of. Do you know what I mean?
That's that's real talks there, my brother. Real talks. You know, some people, when anybody calls, I like this one here. When anybody calls you an idol worshiper, because maybe you may have a statue or something like that, honoring, because obviously we have different aspects of divinities. So, for example, in the ontology of most African thought, um, I think I actually got the ontology here. Let me just make sure. Um, I've got it here somewhere. I got it here somewhere. So, for example, the ontology from most African thought is that there is a supreme being at the top, and that supreme being has various different manifestations, which would be personifications, so to speak, in a categorization form. I hope that makes any sense. So, for example, you have the supreme being, then it will manifest itself in a particular way over here.
Are you talking about like the Yoruba one? I've seen there's like three different types of things. Like one is the gateway between earth and the heavens. One's the supreme being above all, and like it's different type. If you know what I'm talking about,
I think,
vaguely.
I think so. I think so.
I can get it for you. Hold on, hold on.
I think so.
Carry
So,
on.
so we have the supreme being. Then we have when it manifests itself in different ways. It has different attributes and names and so forth. So, for example, let me use Christian and Muslim terminologies right now. So, for example, we may have the Father who is at the top, and then when it manifests itself on earth, that we can perceive it, it's called the Word. The Word now takes on physical form and so forth. So the Father and the Word is the same thing, but it's now perceivable on earth, basically. For example, again, let's go use some Muslim terminology. So we may have Allah, okay, that's the most sublime name, for example, but we now see within inside of nature, oh, Allah has a merciful quality. But now, instead of it being just a name, we simply create a whole school of thought on the mercy, what it is to be mercy, how to actually get in contact with the merciful side of it. Allah is the judge. Okay, judge is actually, a principle. What are the sciences or the school thought form behind being a judge? How do we learn to be a judge? Oh, we must now learn logic. We must learn how to be decisive and so forth. There is a whole study that we would categorize on the one manifestation of the supreme being, so to speak. And most people will be in contact that particular supreme being. Anybody who wants to be under the school of lawyers or judges and so forth, they wouldn't be worrying about the rest of the names of Allah or God or the Orisha or whatever the case is. Their main focus is worshiping that particular aspect and incarnating that particular aspect in their day-to-day life. Okay. So we have, the supreme being, we have the divinities, which will be the various manifestations, and then we have the spiritual realm where the ancestors reside and so forth. Now, there is various ways we can contact the ancestors, and there's various ways we can contact these divinities. The supreme being is something that we will always show the most devotion to, but we realize that we just don't need to show devotion. We need to actually contact it for it to give us something back in return. Now, most times, you know, religious people, they'll be talking to their gods or God or whatever the case is, and that will be a key form of idol worship, as in IDLE worship. They just idly worshiping God. They're asking God for all these things or telling God to do all these things, and more time or not, God doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything for them at all. But when you come into African philosophy and thought, that's why I think, you know, juju, voodoo, obia, all of that is feared a
Yep.
lot, because they
Yep.
know that if a juju man or voodoo man, yeah, was
Yep.
contacted to do a certain thing, we know that certain thing will take place without a shadow of a doubt. I have most Christians, Nigerian family, bro. They'll go church, yeah, yeah, yeah. They'll be praying to God for whatever it is, baby, for whatever the case is, yeah. But one that doesn't work, when all the idol worshipping doesn't work, they now go back through the traditional means where the actual power is to get what they actually need, and that definitely works. That 100% that works. So when people are calling you an IDOL worship, just simply laugh and just say that they're just doing idol worshiping. They're just worshiping their God idly. That doesn't do anything, doesn't respond to them, doesn't talk back to them, doesn't do anything for them at all. It's they themselves that's doing the things that needs to be done, but give all their thanks and reverence to God itself. When
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
when it's time to be healed, they'll go to the doctors and get their
Yeah.
healing medicine, whatever the case
Yeah.
is, and then they now thank God for it. When it's not God itself that's giving you it, is actually the doctor. But from an African perspective, the God and the doctor are seen as kind of the same thing. The doctor
Yeah.
is the agent of God who's receiving the inspiration. He now goes in, does his whatever he needs to do, contacts the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm will now tell you this is the diagnosis for such and such person. This is the elements, the herbs, the things that you need to gather up to create something to give to that person to be healed. And then you give your offering to the to the deity or to the ancestor who gave you that information. You share out that food between everybody who actually fellowship. So we know our stuff literally works. Your stuff, we have to think twice about it. It's pretty much a legendary. But anyway, I digress. Gabs, I know you want to jump in. I know that's
Yeah.
something you definitely want to jump in on.
Yeah. I was gonna go back into agreeing and adding to the point that you brought up on what the ancestors did about homing into a particular aspect of the Father or God or Yahweh or Allah, and dealing with that certain aspect of the Creator. It's the same way as we can see that today in our lives, where you have the school system or university being the main overhead, and then in that you have subjects, which is the subjects of the university, where you could do, let's just say you home into science. Then on science has got a vast different aspects. You can go into biology, or you can go down the road of physics, or you can go down the road of, I don't know, mechanics, computer science. Do you see what I'm saying? And then each person spends their time dealing with that particular field and tries to master it. And then at the end, they get tested and they get rewarded for reaching a certain level in that field. You see what I'm saying? This is the same way the ancestors saw the creator and in nature. So they dealt with certain particular aspects and tried to master it. And then maybe once you understood that train of thought, you move to the next school. Then you deal with that another aspect of the creator. And once you've gone past it, you just keep going around until you try to understand who this creator, this God, or this being is. Do you see what I'm saying? And the reward you get is the knowledge and understanding and becoming one with this creator and understanding who he is. Do you see what I'm saying? Which makes, to me, what makes a bit more sense. Do you see what I'm saying? So that was just the point. I just wanted to add on what you were just saying.
Indeed. Now, you know what? I really wanted to jump onto something that actually is really good for this topic right here. I wanted to jump in some of Jehuti's teachings, because if you actually go on, you talk a little bit more, and let me see if I can jump into that sooner than rather than later, because there was this claim about idol worship going on. A lot of people are talking about idol
Yeah.
worship and so forth. I actually wanted to find something here that literally talks and hits that point home so very well.
Is that
Just
in the
give me a
books of
little while.
Jehui?
Yep, it's one of the books of Jehuti right here. Give me a second. If you could just talk a little bit, and I'll get it for you.
Ask what's the brother's name? Did you want to add something in?
Yummy. Oh no,
Yeah.
I thought there's like a lot of like throughout like time, like people try and like give these, I don't know what to call it, like what did Kalam say, the supreme being or whatever,
Yeah.
that give it a name. So like I was looking up because I'm Nigerian, like a lot of the time in the songs they'll be singing for worship, they'll say like Eledumare and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I'm like, one day I was just looking it up, and then I saw like that's another like word they use for God. But
Yeah.
then in reading it, it was like that one is the name that they give the Supreme Creator. They have another one. Like there's just loads of like different like aspects of it, like how things bridge between who communicates what's happening between heavens and earths. And it bugged me out. Like I just thought people are really trying to like understand it themselves.
Mm. Yeah.
And like it's weird because I'm thinking if this has like been a system that's existed like for like years on years, like how it's changed over time,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to understand it myself. Like I don't know how people, obviously things are going to adapt through time. Like people have to find a way to make things make sense to them. But I
Mm.
just wonder like how it happened. Like it's very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like just before we started. I asked Kalam a question. I asked him, um, for religious people. I said, if we had, if we took away nature, if there was no nature, could we understand God?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think? If there was no nature, so that right now, if there was no nature, yeah, so you understand what nature encompasses, yeah? If there was no nature, could we understand God? Now, the reason why I say that, because remember, to our religious brothers and sisters, they will say, um, Allah or Yahweh created all this physical stuff. This is just the creation. It's
Mm,
not God.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? This is not God. This is just the creation.
mm,
And not even that. This is just the creation that came from nothing.
mm.
You see what I'm saying? So nature really and truly is nothing. So let's just say it like that then. If there was no nature, could we
Wait,
get this relationship? Understand
what do you
God?
mean nature though? Like what we like see?
Nature, yeah. So anything, nature that we see, as in with the grass, the field, the animals, the sky. You know what I mean?
Mm,
The moon. You see what I'm saying? Because remember, these are all creations that came out of nothing.
mm,
And a lot of religious people say, "Why do you worry about the creation? You know what I mean?
mm.
Worry about the creator. He created all these
I
stuff from
don't
nothing."
I don't think we could either way, and I still don't think we can now.
Mm.
If there is one, I still don't even think we can. Because
You
there's
see?
things that I don't understand. Even if assume there is a creator, there's things in the world that don't make sense to me now.
Yeah.
So
So that's the
so even
yeah.
looking at nature now, like I can appreciate the what does everyone always say? It's designed or whatever, and it's got an order or what we perceive to be an order. But even if there was none, I don't think we could understand a God or supreme being anyway. Like it wouldn't. It's not in our realm of understanding. This is the thing I like. Not problem, but this is one of the things I like. I find with it. It's like how if something's like. I hate to use this analogy, but it's like if you don't know anything about like rocket science or astronomy or something, you're gonna go in a room and be like, "Oh, I found that this," because you don't actually like know what you're talking about.
Mm.
If that makes sense. So I can appreciate nature, the divinity of it, like how everything, in a sense, like works together for like our advancement.
Mm.
Like everything's precisely put together for like us to continue to live and and it's like gonna continue for a while if like the planet don't get messed up or whatever. But I don't know how it works, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nature or not, like I can't understand God's nature. I don't think anyone can really.
Yeah. And that's why I would say if that's the case, if we then do need nature to be able to come to some sort of recollection of this creator or this being,
Hmm.
that would mean that this being or this supreme creator would have to be in or part of nature.
Yeah,
Couldn't say that he's separate from it.
yeah,
It wouldn't make no
it
sense
wouldn't make
because we wouldn't.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah, it wouldn't make no sense because we wouldn't. I would love to ask. I would love to see if there's some Muslims or Christians that's on the comment section and chat if they could answer that question. If there
it
was no
can't, it
nature,
wouldn't add up. Like,
But you know what? Let me let
yeah,
me let me jump into something here.
yeah,
Because I actually found what I was looking for in terms of the idols and so forth. This was actually a good discourse that was taking place between Jehuti or Hermes
we got a
in the
lot of
comment.
books there, you know. I'm just
Uh,
seeing endless books, like you just,
just putting them out from the magic hat, like just
yeah.
endless. So this is a great discourse that was taking place between Jehuti and Asclepius. Asclepius, I believe, was known as Imhotep to the Egyptians. So let me go into this. And this is, Imhotep was actually questioning him about the whole idols and statues and things of that nature. So it says here, but the figures, this is Jehuti talking now, but the figures of gods that human form have been formed of both natures, from the divine, which is purer and more divine by far, and from the material of which they are built, whose nature falls short of the human. And they represent not only the heads, but all the limbs and the whole body, always mindful of its nature and origin. Humanity persists in imitating divinity, representing its gods in semblance of its own features, just as the Father and Master made his gods eternal to resemble him. And this is Asclepius speaking. Are you talking about idols, Trismegistus? Statues, Asclepius. Yes. See how little trust you have. I mean, statues, ensouled and conscious, not idols. Let me repeat that. Statues, Asclepius. Yes. See how little trust you have. I mean, statues ensouled and conscious, filled with spirit and doing great deeds. Statues that foreknow the future and predict it by lots, by prophecy, by dreams, and by many other means. Statues that make people ill and cure them, bringing them pain and pleasure as each deserves. Do you know not, Asclepius, that Egypt is an image of heaven, or to be more precise, that everything governed and moved in heaven came down to Egypt and was transferred there? If truth were told, our land is a temple of the whole world. And yet, since it befits the wise to know all things in advance of this, you must not remain ignorant. A time will come. Okay, so this goes on to a prophecy, which is so true amongst Africans in general, not just to Egypt, but to Africa in general. Okay, it says here, you must know, not remain ignorant. A time will come when it will appear that the Egyptians paid respect to divinity with faithful mind and painstaking reverence to no purpose at all. All their holy worship will be disappointed and perish without effect. For divinity will return from earth to heaven, and Egypt will be abandoned. The land that was the seat of reverence will be widowed by the powers and left destitute of their presence. When foreigners occupy the land and territory, not only will reverence fall into neglect, but even harder, a prohibition on the penalty prescribed by law will be enacted against reverence, fidelity, and divine worship. Then this most holy land, seat of shrines and temples, will be filled completely with tombs and corpses. O Egypt, Egypt of your reverent deeds, only stories will survive, and they will be incredible to your children. Only words cut in stone will survive to tell your faithful works, and the Scythians or Indians or some such neighbor barbarians will dwell in Egypt. For divinity goes back to heaven, and all the peoples will die deserted, as Egypt will be widowed and deserted by God and human. It carries on to tell you how certain people will only be known to be Egyptians by language alone, but there will be a time to come when the God shall return and bring things back to how things were back in the good old days, basically. But that's a key point I wanted to make. I wanted to actually
Bro,
go ahead.
hold on. I was just gonna say, was that just a prophecy that I just heard?
That was a
Was that
prophecy,
just a pro? Was that just a prophecy that I just heard, bro? Because G, that sounds a bit. That sounds a bit too familiar, and that seems a bit too real. I think if people didn't grasp that after this show, they need to rewind this video and listen to that again because that was peak. I'm not even gonna lie, that was serious, man. Because
real.
that was written when?
That was written 10 of the first century.
Jeez,
First century.
jeez,
So that was just before Jesus's time.
jeez, jeez.
And
Boy,
some of it was actually written is actually, let me be honest with you, it's from 4th century BCE to the 1st century AD. So before Jesus and during the first years of Jesus, basically. That
jeez.
was very you know,
Yeah, trust.
Jehuti was a great prophet. Jehuti was a
Yeah,
great prophet. This was penned down. We don't know how far back in antiquity it actually does go, but this was penned down during the 4th to 1st century. And people there was talking about the idols itself, the so-called idols, the statues that they see, and then Jehuti had to actually kind of castrate the brother and say, you know what, these things are going to be viewed as that way. It's going to be viewed as we were irreverent, that we were just doing things in vain. But no, these statues in-housed or ensouled consciousness itself. It had powers to foretell the future, it had powers to make people ill and to make people well again. So anytime somebody says, because they see a statue in front of you and so forth, they believe that you're worshiping this statue, which, as again, it's not nothing to do with worship and it's nothing to do with anything like that. It was honoring it because we knew that we were able to trap, for example, certain divinities or certain spiritual energies within inside of a physical terrain. Okay. And that physical terrain or that physical statue was able to be contacted, and not the statue itself, but the soul that housed it, to give you certain things that will benefit you in your life. Most people don't know about this. We have in ancient Egypt called the opening of the mouth ceremony, which was enacted not only on statues, but it was enacted upon mummies. It was acted upon temples as well. And people might think this is far off from their own religion, but when you look into your religion, you'll find something called the Shekinah. Okay, from a Jewish perspective, it's called the Shekinah. From a Christian perspective, it's called the Holy Spirit, and from a Muslim perspective, it's called the Sakina. Okay, and most temples were dedicated to God, and the Spirit of God actually dwelled within inside of it. And if we go into the Jewish themselves, they had what's that chest called again? Was that chest called the Holies of Holies?
the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark
Ark of
of
the
the
Covenant.
Covenant, where they can actually get in contact with God directly itself
Yeah,
via the Ark of the Covenant. So these were the
yeah,
practices. Even Moses, he crafted. For those people who think it's idol worship, yet again, Moses was able to craft out a serpent on a staff,
yeah,
which is another symbol of Hermes or
yeah,
Jehuti. And it was ensouled with a certain energy, spiritual energy, where anybody who just gazed upon it or even touched it, from any snake bites or anything like that, they were healed from it as well. So it's funny how people would like to, point the finger and saying that, look, you're an idol worshiper, but not realizing that in pointing one finger at another person, you got literally three fingers pointing back at yourself, because you don't actually know your own scriptures, your own traditions, and your own religion, where these spiritual forces are actually present and are actually housed within inside of objects such as talismans and statues that can actually give off certain potent energies and powers. And again, as you were saying about the prophecy was deep, right? The
yeah.
prophecy was deep.
That was deep,
Saying that they would even outlaw your religion, make your
Yeah,
religion seem as something that is completely abominable.
Gee,
You know.
that's definitely evident. That's
Mm.
why when you was just reading that, I was just thinking about so much stuff, just basically just seeing how that's just it's real. Like I can see where that's even happened today. I can see that. No one in the chat and no one that's watching this can't say that what you just read there doesn't make sense and that hasn't just happened. You see what I'm saying? That's if they deal with religion. No, that's if they deal with history and take their egos out of the religion and they deal with actual history and world history and dealing with people and that. You can see that that's evident. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. That's real. That's real.
Mm.
Let me think. We're reaching the end, you know. We're reaching the end. I want to give some more. I want some questions in before we
Mhm.
actually reach the end of the show. Please drop as many questions as you possibly can in the comment section down below so we can actually answer them. And of course, after the show is finished as well, drop your questions because I'm definitely going to visit the comment section. We're definitely going to try to answer as many questions as possible on there. And also, please check out one of our previous shows. Let's see if I can actually share my screen right about now. Let's see. God, if you got a question, ask away while I'm sharing my screen.
Um, are you guys like familiar with like Kemetic, like the ancient teachings and stuff like that, or what they used to follow?
Are we familiar with ancient
Right,
Kemetic?
like no, not teachings, but just the stuff, all the stuff on the walls and that type of stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely,
Do
definitely.
you
So,
think? Because I've been like
wait,
looking into it
one
recently.
second, one second, one second. Before you go into that, I just want to make sure my screen is being showed. Yes, it is. Let me
Yeah.
get it up. So yeah, please. I'm gonna ask you to please, 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 if you're not already subscribed to Titans TV, please hit the subscribe button. Get subscribed. Get in tune with everything that we're doing here. We've got conscious lectures, debates, discussions, and interviews. We try to do a show every Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, right? We try to do a show at least every
Yeah.
Wednesday or throughout the week. You know, we had a great show with me and Gabs again. Jesus. We was comparing Pharaoh and Jesus in terms of the Sarah principle or the Son of God principle within ancient Egypt. We've got some good shows that's taking place recently. We had SETI in London. This is quite a good show to watch. Also, Young Pharaoh as well. And my brother Gabs, you know, been getting involved with the debates. We had a
Yeah.
Muslim versus Kemetic debate going on. I can't remember when it was, but I've only posted up today. And is voodoo evil? Which was a really good conversation. Then we got the Hebrew Israelite versus Kemetic again, alien DNA or Adam's DNA. We've got loads of speakers corner stuff. So if you're Muslim, atheist, Kemet, Jew, Hindu, Christian, Sikh, I'm pretty sure we've got everything for you in there. As you can see, most of our videos, oh wow, they've gone quite viral. We've got over, 350,000 views on this one over here. So please tune into all of our videos from atheists, Muslims, Jews, and so forth going on. And also, if you would love to get to know more about African philosophy, check out some of my stuff as well. So we got my stuff over here, which is the 42 laws of Ma'at, 42 negative confessions, reading straight directly from the hieroglyphs itself, strictly from the Medunetta. And I also dedicate quite a few videos to my Muslim brothers, my Hebrew brothers. Yeah, who else? Hebrew brothers and Muslim brothers. We've got quite a lot of stuff going on in there. And also we've got Renoko Rashidi that does a great presentation on Africa and Asia, the African presence in Asia. So yeah, please, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, tune into all the great stuff that we're doing here on Titans TV. How do you worship the Supreme? I'm just reading some questions now. So someone's asking me here, how do you worship the Supreme Being? That's the Old Testament Torah. I mean, okay, so they're having a big conversation there by themselves. Is it written in the Bible? Who will kill with a sword dies with a sword. So they're having their own question. They're having their own little arguments going on in there by themselves. Yeah, this is funny. This is funny. I love that. So it's good. Go on. If you had any questions or comments, please go ahead, my brother.
You're both like familiar with like Kemet, like is it philosophy? Like what do you call it? Like the whole I don't know what's it called. Like you could probably describe it better than me.
Okay, so again, when you're talking about all this time is
Huh.
not me. Yeah, when we're talking about Kemet, Kemet itself is obviously
It's
the
the
name
place,
of
name of
the
the place.
landmass or the empire itself, coming from
Yeah.
the word Kem or Ham, which
Hmm.
literally just means the black or the black land or even the black people themselves,
Mm.
depending on your own interpretation of it. Um,
Mm.
but when we're talking about Kemet, we're generally talking about African philosophy and religion and thought pattern and history and culture,
Mm.
everything involved. So when you're learning Kemet, one of the first things you do learn is history. You're going to learn about the chronology of the ancient Egyptian empire in relation to where we stand right now and in relation to other civilizations and cultures. You're going to learn about the historical elements and archaeology of those historical elements within that chronology. So you're going to learn about the pharaohs. You're going to learn what a pharaoh is. You're going to learn about when the unification of the two kingdoms, the upper kingdom and the lower kingdom of Egypt or Kemet, and when they came together and then the empire started, and then whatever happened throughout the different dynasties and so forth. So that's one element of it. That's the historical, chronological, geographic, archaeological element of it. And I think you're wanting to talk about more of the wisdom teachings, the philosophy, and even the religious aspect of it.
Mm. So
Um,
then with that, I've like mad been looking into it recently, and like I don't, I don't know if I can reach the conclusion that like a lot of Christianity or all the other like religions of like not based on it, but there's like a lot of similarities.
yeah,
Like, have you guys looked into it enough to like say that it's like plagiarized is such a strong word for me? Like, I don't know if it is, but do you feel like they've actually like, a lot of the stuff is like where it's drawn from?
yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say plagiarize. That is
Yeah,
a hefty
it's strong in
claim.
it.
That's a hefty claim and a hefty burden of proof that would now be placed upon you to actually prove that.
Mm,
I wouldn't say it's plagiarized. I would say that they are offshoots of ancient Egyptian civilization and
mm,
other cultures, surrounding cultures, and they have their own thought as well. They have their own things that are completely foreign from Kemetic thought as well. So if even you look around the whole, let's say, East Africa and over into the Arabian regions and Iraq regions, you can see that they share the same type of worldview. Okay, they have
mm,
very similar stories throughout the different cultures because technically, they claim to be near enough the same people anyway. So
mm,
as you can imagine, like me and you may be brethrens. We may have an ancestor, and we may have stories relating to the ancestor, but the way I tell the story and the way
could be
you tell the
different.
story is going to be two different things. And then throughout
Mm,
generations and generations, those stories are going to be altered and changed. You're going to have your own practice of how you do things. You're going to create your own traditions and other things like that. So it generally begins to disperse somewhat.
mm,
But obviously, we can see that they came from near enough the same ancestral base in terms of
mm,
linguistics. They all from the Afro-Asiatic family. In terms of even when you talk about genetics and haplogroups, they're all kind of from the E1B1 to the J haplogroup. So it's all kind of very much similar groupings of people. Even when you look at the geographic spacing of these people, they're the same people. If you look at most of the stories, all of them had an interaction with ancient Egypt. Abraham had an interaction with ancient Egypt.
mm,
Moses had an interaction with ancient Egypt. Joseph had an interaction with ancient Egypt. Hezekiah had an interaction. Solomon, like Jesus, Muhammad,
mm,
like the list goes on. Ancient Egypt was very paramount, or Kush. Ancient Egypt and Kush was very paramount to the
mm,
making and influence of these different religions. So yeah, I would say so. They have an influence and a part to play in making these religions.
mm. Because I was watching this. I think his name's Ashra Kwesi, something like
Yep,
that.
Asher Kwesi.
He was showing something on the walls where like the two I don't really remember the names now. Like the two supposed first like beings ate from something of knowledge, like I don't know. But it's like similar to Adam and Eve. But to me, Adam and Eve doesn't make like sense like at all. But then I look at that and that makes sense, and they're like very similar. So I'm like, this can't like just be a random occurrence. Like there's like some sort of similarity.
Yeah, definitely. There is some type of similarity. What I would say, in order to understand the Bible, I would definitely say you must understand the civilizations and the cultures that predate the Bible.
Mm,
Once you do that, you can get to understand it a little bit more.
Bit better. Yeah. Yep.
that's that's it. When you
Yep.
go into, you got the Babylonian stories. They even have the names Adam and so forth. You look at this, and you look at the Anunnaki story and the making
Yep.
of man, because you want to make them into slaves, to mine, to do the gold, and all these different things. Here, you're like, okay, wow. It kind of
mm,
puts that into perspective. This is kind of where that story is stemming from. Then you have other stories like floods and so forth. You read other flood stories from,
mm,
Sumeria, Akkadians, the Greeks, and so forth. You're like, okay, I see where that comes from. Even the Egyptians had a concept of Noah, and having these 8 children on the boat and stuff like that. You can
mm.
see where these concepts are grafted from, definitely.
But then
Um,
my thing is what? Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead, Don. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My thing then is why isn't this stuff looked at? Like why is Christianity, Islam, and thing just presented as the truth? Like, isn't it? Aren't you doing like a not a disservice, but shouldn't like the stuff that came before be talked about as well?
In,
Like give credit. Like you're
Not even
basically
give
saying
credit to,
giving
but
credit
if
where.
if we've arrived at like those now, like it came from somewhere.
Indeed. I think what it is, generally speaking, religions, pride themselves, and they don't want to let me not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. The people high up in religion,
Mm,
let me not even say just the normal pastors and all those ones there. I'm talking about those ones that have done formal studies. When you go to, for example, listen, if you go to Rome and you see what the Vatican has got,
I've been,
yeah, then
yeah, I've
they
seen it.
know, and they give veneration. I'll tell you this now: they give veneration
Mm,
to the ancient Egyptians, to those ancestors, one
mm,
hundred percent. In every single, near enough every single square that you go to, or piazza that you go
mm,
to, you will see an obelisk there, an obelisk,
mm,
an obelisk, an obelisk. You go into the Vatican Museum, you just see pure Egyptian stuff there. You just see it
mm,
all. They know what the real stuff is. They know most
mm,
of these stories are literally just stories,
mm,
mythologies telling a higher aspect of things. They don't think these are literal truths or literal
mm,
facts. They're highly removed from that. The layman believes this to be 100% this is that.
mm,
But they're speaking on a highly philosophical level,
mm,
but giving you parables, so to speak, in the
mm.
form of, oh, Jesus and such and such and such and such.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is completely removed from all of that. You're thinking,
Mm,
oh, the Trinity is one thing. Nah, bro, they're talking on a whole different level that
mm,
is to do with the cosmos,
mm,
Mm.
but making it into something very terrestrial that the layperson can actually
understandable.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Let me quickly see what everybody else is saying over here.
I gotta shoot, guys. Thank you for having me. I've
No,
enjoyed it still.
no problem. I think Kalam
Cool,
doesn't.
bro.
Yeah,
Laters, man.
Yeah.
is Moyombo Sente. I have to read this one out. This is funny. I think Callum doesn't want to hurt people's feelings by saying it how it is. I love that.
Huh.
Um, Abraham is the father of monotheism. Somebody asked, "Am I blocked?" You can't possibly be blocked if you're actually asking a question. Atom Amen says, Times TV, Asar, body being chopped into 14 pieces and scattered throughout the earth. And it took the Holy Mother, Aset, and her priestess to piece him back together, and her using her divinity to resurrect him. Yes, that's according to the mythology. Um, okay, somebody asked to be on the panel. Yeah, if you wanted to be on the panel, as I said, all you have to have, literally just add me as a friend and then inbox me. Say, I want to be on the panel. My Facebook details should be right down below. Just inbox me. Tell me you want to be on the panel, and I'll definitely get you on the panel. It's that simple. Simple. I'll send you the link. Yes, Gabs. Is there anything that you wanted to add? Or is there anything that you wanted to go into?
No, not at the moment. There was one. I wanted to see what the brother that asked the question on the 14 pieces. I thought whoever put that message, I thought he was gonna add a bit more on.
Okay. So here,
Yeah.
there's another question here. What do you think about the connection between Kemet and using sound vibrations to help build symmetrical buildings like the pyramids? That
Hmm.
was Hawass. No, not Zahi Hawass. What's his name again? Uh, Hakim Abdul Hakim. He's passed away now. Great, great guy who was part of the wisdom teachings in Egypt. He was an Egyptologist, but he was actually a native Egyptian that came with that type of teaching that he's heard. Um, it's a theory. I haven't seen it being acted out
Mm.
or it being workable. So I'll put it right now. It's a theory. Um, you'll get kicked out of any church on the planet if you bring up Kemet. Yeah, quite possibly. The elite already know the truth, but hide it for us. Uh-huh. I actually think that they don't actually hide it. I actually don't think they hide it. I actually think they leave it in plain sight for everybody to see. And they know,
Yeah.
what was that? What's that famous saying? The best way to
Hide it.
hide
Yeah.
something from an NIGGER is to put it in a book. Okay.
Yeah.
So the book could be there in plain sight, but only those who have eyes to see and ears to hear will actually be, that information will be perceptible to them. That's the way I see it. Because I'm pretty sure everybody in American culture, for example, and the world culture, they see that pyramid and that eye,
All
the eye
over
in
the
the
place.
pyramid,
Yep.
dollar bill. They see all of those
Yep.
symbolism, but they don't have a clue what's going on. Um, Let me see. I Facebooked you, brother. Okay, let's see. Let me see. You Facebook me. I do not see it. Let me see. Marked requests. Aha. I'm trying to get on the panel. Wow, quite a few people trying to get on the panel. Okay. Let me get you up on here then. Let's see. Accept. I'm gonna get you on the panel. We're gonna be closing out soon. So we can talk off air, but we're still going. We're still going. So let me accept you. Um, See, I hear this about Facebook. They always have like a little hidden compartment that you have to
Yeah.
really search for to get people. Okay, let me jump on. Let me see. 'Cause I really want to get all your questions read out or comments read out. Hey, people, stop talking about Kemet when none of you are from my country of Kush.
Okay.
Just cut it out, people. You just Afrocentric worshipping dead pagans who my ancestors kicked their backsides and united Upper and Lower Kemet. Okay, so this is from Kiku Yoncho. And it says here, hey people, stop talking about Kemet when none of you are from my country of Kush. Okay, I don't understand that question. Okay, you were not from the country of Kush, or you are from Kush. Which one? You're not from Kemet, or you're not from Kush. Um,
Huh.
Personally, I don't know. I don't know. Some people may claim to. I don't know. I haven't actually heard any person from the Kemetic ideology claiming to be from Kemet. Personally, I have no need to claim
Mm.
ancient Egyptian or Kemet.
No.
Um, if I even wanted to, I would actually claim those people who gave, I would say, people from West Africa, especially
Yep.
if you're from West African heritage or Caribbean heritage, are those people who actually were the seeds of the Kemetic people. They weren't actually the ancient Egyptians. Our blood lineage aren't the ancient Egyptians ourselves. We may have been the seeds of the ancient Egyptians. Surely, of course, there has been migrations from those people back into West Africa and so forth. You know, I don't neglect that. But me personally, I wouldn't claim to be an ancient Egyptian or Kemet person. Okay, so whoever's just joined us now, please turn off your YouTube. I'm gonna mute you for now. And if you want to actually say something, come on, but just mute your YouTube. All right. Krishna Bush, I ain't Somali, but they are my brothers. I'm East African. So, okay. So this person is East African who made that thing. All right. Is Kush actually a historical person? Is Kush actually a historical person? That's a question that we need to ask our biblical friends to answer. Okay, so Rodney, you're here. If you're able to talk, talk. If not, we're going to move on with the conversation. Okay, so I guess we are. So, my brother Gabs, is there anything that you wanted to say? Let me think. Pick up any books. Pick out any books to read. Any topics that we need to go into?
No, nothing. I was still waiting. I was waiting to see if anybody in the chat was gonna any of our religious brothers and sisters was gonna add anything to the little combo I was talking about to deal with if there was no nature, could we still understand God? I don't know if anybody I don't know if you saw if anybody put any questions or had anything to say on that. So I'm just gonna throw that out there now. If anybody any of our religious brothers and sisters want to add to that question, and then we just take it from there.
Whilst we're waiting, you know what? Let me read something actually. I haven't picked up this book for ages. This is to do with child ceremony, I guess. So actually, let me read. This is from Ibn Washir, actually. Ibn Washir, writing in the 8th century. It's called The Ancient Alphabets and Hieroglyphs Character Explained, with an account of the Egyptian priests, their classes, initiations, and sacrifices in the Arabic language. This is kind of like one of my all-time favorite books. I got introduced to this book from like some Sufis, to be honest with you. And it says here, they were the authors. You know, let me see. These initiated scholars were divided into 4 classes. The first class comprehended the sect of the blah blah blah, who were all descendants of Hermes the Great. They married daughters of their own race only, and never were allowed to have any kind of intercourse with strangers. No man in the world was acquainted with any of their secrets. They alone possessed them. They were the authors of the books commonly called the books of Idris, Enoch. They constructed temples dedicated to the spirits and buildings of magical wisdoms. The few of those who in our time are acquainted with this knowledge live retired in some islands near the frontiers and continue to tread the steps of their forefathers. The second class are these types of peoples. Let me get into something good. Let's see, they had only one feast in the year, lasting 8 and 20 days a month, beginning at the entrance of the sun into the sign of Aries, which is just now actually. At this time they approach their relations and enjoy perfumes and other pleasures of life. They confess the unity of God, the creator of all things, blessed be his name. They never communicated their secrets and hermetic treasures to anybody, but they preserved them from generations to generations till our days. Now this is what I actually wanted to get into. This is a real good thing for those people who like to know more about, you know, birthing ceremonies, which will then kind of go into death ceremonies. But birthing ceremonies here, this is from Ibn Washir, an Arabic writing person in the 8th century, talking about the ancient Egyptians and what he saw amongst the people of his day and time. When a child was born to them, the mother took it to the priest of the temple, where a trial of the children used to be made. She laid it down on the threshold of the temple without speaking a word. The priest then came with a golden cup full of water in his hands, accompanied by 6 other priests. He said prayers and sprinkled water over the child. If it moved and turned its face towards the threshold, the priest took it by the hands and conducted it into the interior of the temple, where there was a coffin prepared on purpose. There they said prayers and performed ceremonies for an hour. Then the priest covered the face of the child with silk handkerchief, a green one for girls and red one for boys. Put it in the coffin, shut it up, and took it in his hands a stick with 3 heads made of silver and set with jewels and precious stones. The father, mother, and relations of the child entered at this moment and performed prayers and hymns in humble devotion. The priest then struck the coffin with his staff thrice and cried out, "In the name of the Lord thy God, who created and made thee exist by his wisdom, speak out the innermost secrets of the events of thy life. Amen, 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 forever and ever." The whole assembly performed 7 adorations and then stood up. The child said, "Health and heaven's blessings to thee." The priest returned his greetings and said, "What is thy name? In what consists thy sacrifice? And what means of substance dost thou desire? And at what hour dost thou..." You know what? There is so much here. I actually wanted to find something that was really nice and really intriguing, but I couldn't find it, unfortunately, because I'm just reading off the back of it. Maybe next time we're going to jump into some more of these things here. This is a really good book for those people who don't know about the decipherment process of the Medunetta. You know, this goes back way before Champollion and Young and you know the French and Europeans and the English and the people in Germany and so forth. It goes way back. This goes back, during the time of the 1st century, 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century, 6th century, 8th century. And this one here, is telling literally where the ancient Egyptians were during those times, where the people were actually conversing with them to learn more about the hieroglyphs, teaching them that ancient and secret knowledge. And you have to, be initiated to learn this information. Or if you're not even initiated, that information will have to be kept secret amongst you for you not to give it out to the people who are not worthy to retain that information. It's a really good book. I do recommend it definitely for the Muslims out there to learn more about ancient Egyptian thought pattern. Wow. Let's see who's here with us now. So we've got Kentrell and we've got Rodney. Peace to you both, Kings.
Wow. What's going on, man? Peace, man. Sorry for everything, man. I got the baby and everything, man.
No problem, no problem. Was there anything you wanted to chime in on?
Real talk. I just had a question. Like, what are y'all beliefs in terms of like what do you feel like the oppressors like main goal is like throughout all of this? Because like my belief is that this is all like the land. It all started from Africa, like in terms of where all the origins and everything. But like, what do you feel like is the main thing of why they doing what they doing? Like, because I mean, I'm not a believer really anything. Like, I'm kind of like a seeker right now. So I'm kind of just like searching for the truth. I feel like we all just need to come together and with all different type of knowledge, we could come up with something to, move forward and get back to where we need to be. Because feel me, I feel like this is all earth at the end of the day. But feel me, like how y'all feel about that? Like what's y'all main core like beliefs? Like, or like, and like why the oppressor doing what they doing? Like what's their main goal? What do we have that they want so bad and that they feel like they could thrive off? Like,
Gabs, is you doing that or you want me to deal with that?
Yeah, I can do. I can chime in on that. Brother, peace to you, King.
Brother. Peace.
I was gonna say, based on that question you just said, yeah. When you're talking about the oppressor, one thing you got to realize, yeah, is that if you see it like this, a gazelle. How does a gazelle see a lion? When a lion is chasing a gazelle and hunting it for food, the gazelle doesn't stop the lion and say, "Bro, why are you doing this to me? Why do you always chase me and want to eat me?" You know what I mean? He don't stop and have a conversation and ask why. So the thing is, how I see it or how I saw it is that the oppressors or the people that are doing these things to African people, we're always asking, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why are you doing that? But the main thing is we got to find out and realize that, listen, this is just their nature. This is just their way of how they're doing things. And we just got to find a way to survive. Do you see what I'm saying?
I feel what you're saying.
Yeah, because asking why, this is a lot of things that we do. We ask, why is it they always doing this? But bro, we keep asking why, but guess what? They're still going to keep doing what they do, bro. That's what they know. If all they know is oppressing, if all they know is robbing and stealing, if all they know is kidnapping, this is just what's going to happen. So the only thing that we can kind of do is is try to survive and teach the young, teach the babies, teach the kids. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
Because this things is just not going to change. You know what I mean? Regardless if we're saying that this is our planet or this is our thing and they're hiding our knowledge, there's nothing we can do. Things been set up. It's all in place now. So the only thing we can do is learn to adapt, survive, and just teach the young. Really, you see what I'm saying?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
I hear that. I hear that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say?
I mean, well, like later on down the road, we'll touch. I mean, I could go on with like, I'm a big fan of the whole thing. I'm trying to get everyone together. I could go on forever, but feel me. I mean, I feel me. We could cut it short for now. Feel me. I just wanted to get on. Feel me. Show love. Show everybody that, man. Y'all got followers, man. Y'all got. Feel me. Like we need to really come together and from overseas everywhere do something, man. Really connect. For real.
Definitely.
We on to something.
Which part you from?
It's just we gotta not let that get to us. That's the main divider. I'm in Connecticut. Hartford, Connecticut. Yeah, man, I'm out here, but definitely, man, you got good brothers out here, man. I got my little group, man, where we be up on our little knowledge. Because again, like we all like mainly my friends, we born Christians, like we were raised on Christianity, but you feel me? As we became older and we see everything, especially with politics and everything like that, like it seemed like it's just getting a lot deeper. Like it's just getting a lot more weird and stuff not adding up. So it's just like, man, we seekers. Like I feel like we more truth seekers. Like I don't really label no religion. I'm seeking the truth. Like, you know what I mean?
Straight. You know what? I want you guys to stay on here. Because I think we're gonna have to close down the show in a hot second. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna close down the show, but I'm gonna keep it running live for everybody to see at the same time. So I'm gonna thank everybody who's actually tuned in right now for coming on here with Talk of the Titans. We've delved into ancestral worship. Is it ancestral worship? Do we worship our ancestors, or is it rightly called ancestral veneration? We've also touched on the concept of the living dead. That those of our ancestors who are passed on, we conceptualize them as still being live, we conceptualize them as still being active and being able to actually have an effect on this world, so we are able to communicate with them to get the things that we need. We also touched on idol worship and idol worshiping and the different forms of divinities and the manifestations and how we plug into those different divinities and how we use those divinities to benefit our lives as well. What I really would love for you guys to do is actually comment down inside the comment section any more questions or comments that you have for us, and we'll try to answer them off air. And also, please hit the share button, hit the share link, so much more people can actually have an opportunity to learn this wonderful information. So I'm signing off now. Peace to you all. Bless. Okay. So now we're not actually signed off. We're not actually signed off. We're still live. I'm going to allow it live. But when I actually cut off the show properly, I'm able to just edit the last bit out because I don't want it to go on for too long. So we've got a new brother who's just joined us right now. And our audience is still here. We haven't cut off the show, but it will be cut off in the actual link later on. I sent a DM for the link, Mr. Titans. Let's see. I haven't seen it. Zoe, message requests. I haven't got it. If you go to Kalam, SPEL, okay, hopefully if you go in the description box down below, you'll be able to see my information on Facebook. It should be Kalam, SPEL.